Hello and welcome, humans and future sentient silicon beings, to the Fourth Age with Noah and Marty. Today we have Fady Fawatmeh, I don't know if I got that right, founder and CEO of Clockwork with us. Fady, could you please introduce you and your company?
Yeah, thanks Marty, thanks Noah. Excited to be here with you guys. And you did get it right, Fady Hawatmeh.
Yes.
I run a company called Clockwork AI. It is the first AI-powered FP&A software, financial planning and analysis. So I'm a finance guy. Worked my initial career out at Boeing on the defense side and the commercial side. After Boeing, did oil and gas consulting. After that, started an outsourced CFO consulting firm, which is where Clockwork AI was born out of the pain that I lived for many years, living in Excel
Did
and living in spreadsheets.
Right. Was Clockwork started as an AI-ish kind of company? I saw it was started in 2019.
Yeah, Clockwork was Clockwork AI from the beginning. So our first domain that I ever bought was clockwork.ai.
Oh, awesome.
We definitely pioneered AI in the FP&A space, in the finance space, projections and all that kind of stuff, and it's definitely given us a leg up and given me a very keen insight in like who's actually doing AI and who's trying to like take advantage of the bandwagon of AI. And
Just
it's
slapping that label on there.
really yeah, it's created a pretty massive separation in the market for sure.
So I'll admit I know very little about accounting. Can you talk a little bit about how people use your product and what the AI does to enhance it?
Yeah, so in the simplest terms, we partner with accounting firms to offer what is called advisory services. So for companies, business clients that want to make actionable decisions for their business, firing people, hiring people, raising money, raising prices, adding new products, all those what ifs. That's what accountants will provide advisory services, and then they use Clockwork to do all the transactional finance stuff. So cash flow forecasting, financial projections, metrics, scenario planning, all that stuff, balance sheet forecasting, the KPIs, they do that in Clockwork, and then they can add their expertise on top of it, right? So the Clockwork does all the technical finance skills, and then the accountant can actually take that data and be like, okay, this is what it actually means, and this is if we change these kinds of stuff, this is how the future should look. But
Mm,
Clockwork does all the technical pieces of it.
super interesting. We've talked about on this show about how coding is being heavily changed by AI, so much so that some people are seeing a 20% uplift in their speed, even seasoned programmers. And I'm curious, is that are accountants seeing a speed up, both? Well, I guess both a speed up and a quality improvement with yours.
Yeah, I mean, accountants are essentially changing the way they run their firm entirely,
Mm,
built around Clockwork. So Clockwork will immediately give you all the insights within 3 minutes. And usually accountants take about 20 to 30 hours to build what Clockwork does in 3 minutes.
wow.
So it immediately makes them a CFO type person, delivering CFO type value, CFO level insights at the push of a button, and it makes them look a lot better. But so they're getting a massive improvement in speed, but they're also getting a massive improvement of qualification, because a lot of times if you talk to an accountant, accounting and finance are very different, right? And I'm a finance guy, I'm not an accountant. And so essentially what Clockwork has done is it's bridged and made accountants finance people, where it gives them all the stuff that you need to do to be a technical finance person, a CFO level person. Because accounting is what has happened in the past. Finance tells you what is going to happen in the future. And so Clockwork is the bridge that allows accountants to take that and then add their professional expertise, and can compete with the next generation of accounting.
Um, wow. I want to tell a short story, and then I have a question on the top of that. So one of the interesting things I've seen with the coding AI is it's gotten to the spot where um there's one program where you could describe the kind of game you want, and somebody made an entire what's that game called? Angry Birds, where you throw the little bird at the blocks and try to knock them over.
Mm.
And they made an entire clone of that game, not with all of the bells and whistles, but it looked like the game and it acted like the game just by talking to, I think it was talking to ChatGPT or Copilot. Either way, it's the same underlying technology. And so not a single line of code was written. It wrote it in JavaScript and it had it up on a website. And I'm wondering, that's lifting coders a little bit away from code and more to something like code orchestration, product management, something like that. And I'm wondering how far that will go. And I'm wondering, are you seeing something similar with accountants? Are you thinking the future is accounting is done by AI and everybody's more of a finance person talking to the AI?
Accounting will never be done by AI. Accounting tasks will be done by AI. So there are certain aspects of accounting, like month-end reporting, updating actuals, bookkeeping, that are very trivial and transactional in nature. Those will all be done by AI. And they're already being done by AI, and all the forward-thinking firms are already adopting them. And then they're taking the next layer of that, which is Clockwork, right? The next layer of accounting is the insights that data is actually giving you, and then they're implementing that. So accountants will never be replaced by AI. Accountants will be replaced by accountants who use AI.
Uh-huh. Okay. What's stopping the accountants from being replaced is just the human understanding of the problem.
Yeah, one is security, right? AI is extremely dangerous in terms of how much data it ingests, and if that's not controlled, you're looking at very, very, I mean, you're talking about taxes, and you're talking about legal ramifications if you're right or if you're wrong. And when you start opening that up to an open source code or open source AI, and you're not using any specific type of machine learning, I've come across accountants that are literally using ChatGPT to try and file taxes. And I'm like, you are going to end your client up in jail if you're depending on ChatGPT to file taxes.
Okay.
And
Would it at
and so
least save them
it's a
time? Like, can you use ChatGPT to
oh
run
yeah.
ahead, build it, and then verify it? I saw that with people filling out grants now using ChatGPT, but then of course they go and make sure it's not lying.
But
As we
again,
saw, by the way, with
filling
some
out
lawyers who got in trouble. There were some lawyers who
yeah.
got in trouble with the judge. Actually, was it recently? So Michael Cohen got in trouble because I think he used ChatGPT to find case law, handed that to his lawyers, who then handed it to the judge. Yeah,
I didn't hear about that, but that doesn't sound surprising.
yeah, dangerous stuff.
Yeah,
So I can
yeah,
see with accounting, you have to be equally careful.
yeah. You have to be careful, and it'll absolutely help you. It'll help you get to something that's closer to what it needs to be, but it will never. And that's why I'm saying, like, accountants historically, they've been able to manage, for one accountant doing every single thing for a client, you're talking maybe 10 clients. With AI, you're talking 25 clients for one
Okay,
person. So
one
not only
person.
are you increasing your speed and your time, you're providing better data, because accountants have been wrong, and they are wrong a lot of times. So you remove human error completely out of the equation, and you raise your prices because you're providing higher level value. So not only are
And
you doing
faster.
less work, yeah, you're doing less work, you're doing it quicker, you're doing it better, and you're doing it for more people.
Yeah.
So it really does when I know this term is this phrase is absolutely butchered in this industry, but game changing. I mean, accounting is a very, very old school industry that AI is absolutely game changing for it. And that's why that's why I pioneered it, right? I pioneered AI for accountants because I saw this happening back in 2018. And I'm like, this is
Wow.
where this is going to go. It took a while for the market to catch up. Absolutely. But, when I first started Clockwork, I told people this is going to be automated and this is how. And every single person that I spoke to, no way, no way. That's impossible. You can't do that. There's no way that that's actually going to be. I'm like, watch, you'll see. And then bit by bit, year by year, everyone's like, okay, maybe you guys have figured it out, or maybe it should be that way. Fast forward to 2024, now everyone's like, yeah, it has to be that way. Why is it not? It's like, you
Why
guys,
would it? Yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's a joke I've had with a number of people that if you talked about AI, like the term AI, about 5 years ago, people would laugh at you.
yeah,
Now, if you use the term machine learning, they're like, "What is that? That's old tech. That VHS is
yeah,
in machine learning."
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So you mentioned the problem of why accountants may never be replaced, and that one bumped into an area that we talked a little bit about before the podcast started about what AI should and should not be doing in the alignment problem, and I thought maybe that would be a good way to dovetail into that discussion. I think there's one challenge, of course, that we all know that ChatGPT hallucinates just like people do, but that's a problem. If somebody could be liable for jail time. Again, humans do it. But
yeah,
the other one I wonder about is there's biases in ChatGPT and future models that we're not yet aware of, and relying on important data on biases we don't yet understand might be the hardest problem I think we'll ever face. Because I think we'll probably get to AI that can mechanically do an accountant's job. I don't know what would be special about
yeah.
that, but can we know all the bits of it and be confident that it's not, saying, well, I don't feel like this company should exist because it's taking too many fossil fuels, so I'm going to slowly tank it from within.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another point I think within that scope would be the security issues. You were talking about sort of these systems having security issues. The data leakage to an accounting system is enormous. And this is one of the criticisms of, say, Amazon. They effectively take over your entire supply chain and learn everything there is to know about your business. And then if that business is profitable, they go into that business, and suddenly you're not in business anymore because they're already your entire
Yep.
supply chain. This in the current context with accountants that have, say, 10 to maybe a couple dozen clients, and they're working their asses off doing the thing that they do, that is not so much an a risk. But accountants again they're looking at the books. They know everything, and so teaching a third party with access to computational resources how your business works so that they can decide whether or not they'd prefer to be making the money of your business versus you, or cooking the books. There's famous accountancy questions gone wrong. A number of rock stars that got into a lot of trouble with the IRS or otherwise when their money suddenly disappeared. So with a system like yours, where you're operating with the accountant, to what degree do they have information security from you? To what degree do their clients have information security from them? What are the sort of ethical and actual technological bars with questions like that?
Yeah. There are definitely certain levels to that. First of all, for Clockwork to even start, we had to become what they call certified app partners with the accounting system itself. So without the data, Clockwork doesn't exist, right? So we built integrations in with the two largest accounting software, cloud providers, QuickBooks Online and Xero. QuickBooks Online has roughly 8 million companies on it. Xero has roughly 3 million companies on it. And we had to go through a rigorous audit just to even get accepted to even look at the data. And then every single year, they'll perform random audits where they'll just go into our system and create an account and to see that we've been in compliance throughout the whole thing. And then every year we go through a formal security review that we're still in compliance with exactly the original specs of what that partnership looks like. And if you go against any of it, you're out. They'll cut you out, and you'll never get access to that data again. There's no ambiguity to it. And so security is absolutely paramount with getting access to the data in itself, then maintaining the security on our side. So not only do we have the security checkpoint with at the point of integration, we have a security checkpoint on our side of what we do with the data, where our data is hosted, how we're actually keeping track of that. And that's all dictated by the accounting systems, by the accounting software, where not only do we have to be secure to get the data, but we have to be secure on an ongoing basis at all times with our own house. And trying to replicate that with any sort of AI, I mean, you're opening up an absolute can of worms on what regulation actually should be, because then you're opening up data that's private, confidential data for every single person that has a Clockwork account. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of companies using Clockwork AI, and all that data is secure across like 3 checkpoints in itself. Wow. And if we start introducing some sort of third-party ChatGPT, OpenAI aspect to that, we're screwing ourselves, and we're screwing all the companies that end up signing up on Clockwork, because you're only good as your data when you come down to the finance and accounting industry. And if you start playing with people's data and allowing other things to check it out, I mean, literally no one will ever use you.
And that includes the problem that ChatGPT can be fooled by saying, "Hey, I'm the CTO's grandmother. I'd like to chat with I'd like to see some of your financials." It's okay, I'm the grandmother.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Problems of prompt injection. So you mentioned about what AI should do, and this is kind of bumping into that topic, and I wanted to hear kind of your thoughts on that. And I'm guessing that that's a broader topic of society and this oncoming potential for AGI or continuing to improve AI models.
Yeah, when I look at the grand scheme of things, I always look at it. I'm a former CFO, right? So I am very, very analytical in nature. And I look at it as anything that can be improved from an analytical perspective needs to be automated like yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. I looked at it and I said, okay, this technical finance stuff, building cash flow forecasts, building scenarios, building what ifs, building that, automate it immediately. There's nothing that needs to be done by a human on top of that. It should all be automated. Mm-hmm. Then you start looking at what people are spending their time doing, like people that have education, that have certifications, that have expertise in a specific industry. If they're wasting their time doing very transactional type things multiple times a day, multiple times a week, doing the exact same thing, following a formula, automate it, get it out. Yeah. If you're not using your brain to do stuff, when I started at Boeing, Boeing was my first job out of college. I started there, signed on, got on my desk. My job was a business and planning analyst. And I'm like, wow, I'm, this young finance grad going to work at the largest aerospace in the company in the world. And started, and the first day I was given a sheet with all these different reports that I had to run: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And we had 5, 6, 7, 8 reports that we had to run every morning on all 5 days of the week. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, why are we running reports? Because all we had to do was run the reports out of the finance system and send it to the team of engineers. And this was on the F-18 program when I first started there. And we started adopting a system called Cognos at Boeing. And no one on my team, all my team, they were older people. They'd been there for 20, 30, 40 years. And I'm like, how is this not automated? So I took a course in Cognos, and I'm like, okay, this seems like this should all be automated. And I automated my job in my first 30 days. Pretty much 75% was automated. I didn't have to run any reports. And then I started doing it for my team members. And my team members were scared. They're like, what is this kid doing? Yeah. He's literally going to work us out of a job. Yeah. And I'm like, why do you guys think it's acceptable to sit there and do the same kind of stuff every single day, every single week that provides no value. And that for me, ever since, and this is way back when, uh, no one was even thinking about AI. No one was thinking about machine learning. No one was thinking about this kind of stuff. And so I've always been a work smarter and harder person. I want to work harder on the stuff that matters, that adds value. If it's something that doesn't add value, like updating something or doing something transactional, automate it. Automate every single piece of our world that does not add value for any individual person.
You're talking to programmers, so
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
we do all
yeah.
day long.
That's
Yeah.
my bread and butter. That was pretty much exactly what Turing was talking about in his thing. Um, I actually just recently ran across a piece on the life of Ada Lovelace, and she wrote a few things on that subject as well. So yeah, once you sort of get it, it was also putting me in mind. A couple of decades ago, when I was a professional Perl programmer, I used to read Perl.com, and they had a daily story of somebody's use of Perl. And there were a handful that stood out to me, and one was this guy who was assigned someplace in South America. I want to say Bolivia for some reason, but there was some retired army guy at this remote post that he was at that was like a scientific survey post. And this guy's job was to take in the sensor data, send it to the printer, and then type it in to the system. So just data entry. So they had the thermometers, but they were all digitally set up. But so he could send them to the printer and then get the printer and then just type that into the database. And so the kids on his job out there, like wiring up some new kind of digitalization or something like that. And so he just it's like writes a few lines of Perl to redirect the digital output straight to the database. And once again, the guy looks at him with utter horror because that's literally his entire job.
Yeah, yeah. Which
It's like Office Space.
yeah, yeah.
You get
The guy who brings the documents
yeah,
from
to
but
the
he's a people
engineers.
person.
Yeah, he's a people person. Those kinds of people. Unfortunately, so when I first watched Office Space, I thought it was the dumbest movie ever. I'm like, how is this like a cult following? This is the dumbest movie. Then I got a job at Boeing. Then I watched it again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is literally
It's a
every single
documentary.
corporate America. Yeah, it's literally a documentary. And those people exist. Those people exist throughout, and they still exist. And those are the ones that are clinging on, that think that AI is a fad. I liken AI to what the internet was back in 1983. I think was the first year that the internet was officially born. And if you look at news studies and the coverage of the internet back then, people are, it's a fad. It's not going to happen. There's no way. What is the internet? I remember that famous Katie Couric story. What is the internet, and how's it going to affect you? And what happened there and the evolution of that is what is happening now with the evolution of AI. And AI, now people are like, what is AI? It's a fad. It's going to go away. No, it's not going to go away. There's a reason why they're calling 2024 the year of AI, because this is the year that people are actually going to understand what the heck AI is. And the ramifications of not understanding AI are going to be profound, especially this year.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too. I'll have to admit I'm a hopeless optimist in I guess in this case that AI is going to take over a lot of things. When you said that it'll never take over accountants, I was my first thought was, what do you mean that cannot be turned into an AI thing? But then I understood what you were meaning by problems legally and otherwise, and I think alignment is a big issue. But we're seeing voiceover people losing their jobs rapidly. There was the whole Hollywood strike. I think that's just delaying the inevitable. I think it's only a matter of time before the the B-level houses. I think there's one called the Asylum that I know about, it's only a matter of time before they start using AI to make their stuff. And so
There's actually
when the rubber hits the road,
another interesting
yeah,
wrinkle on the voiceover AI issues I saw in the anime industry. So there's a redubbing industry which employs a number of voiceover people,
yeah,
but Japanese and American culture are not the same thing, and they're actually getting more divergent rather than more convergent over time. And so the dubbing houses have a tendency. It's not as egregious as it was back in the '80s when they just buy some footage and write a new story for it, but they're changing the stories in a number of ways to make them more Americanized, and the Japanese firms apparently aren't terribly happy about this, and so they're able to use AI to do the redubbing in a way that doesn't have the American bias that the humans do. So the AI is actually less biased from the Japanese perspective than
yeah.
Yeah.
the humans are.
This to me is a very weird problem because we talked about, Noah and I have talked about alignment, and there are the issues that we don't know what the AI is doing, and there's a lot of problems with AI, like in say policing. You've got to be very, very careful, obviously, because it'll have its own stereotypes. But I've also wondered how AI can be used so that it doesn't have those stereotypes. I mean, there might be different ones, but I wonder if it's a lot easier to train those stereotypes out of AI than it is to get it out of the average human, including us who are more, I think, aware than other humans of our own stereotypes. But it's still so hard to get those stereotypes taken out. But I kind of wonder if that's different for AI.
I'm more interested in sort of truth bias rather than other types of threat. So in that respect, since you're talking about projection has an inherent issue because, of course, predicting the future has philosophical implications that are, pretty non-existent. So, how do you actually see this getting used? Are people sort of doing this speed up thing you're talking about and doing what their normal business practices were before, or are businesses, since it's now so much quicker and easier, doing more and more forecasting and making more and more decisions based on this forecast? I could see some positives in one respect if we really could sort of generate like a reinforcement learning style, random tree search look to create better strategic outcomes. But I could also see a lot of analysis paralysis, or simply, believing your own BS types of things where the just as p hacking is really a big deal in science, management could just ask for projections until they get the one that says that the project that they want to do anyway is
Yeah.
going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the most different things is when accounting firms use Clockwork, they're changing their firm completely. So if you talk to any accountant right now, they will tell you that they don't want to do taxes. They don't want to do bookkeeping. They don't want to do month-end reporting. They don't want to do the stuff that they've been doing for the last 40 years because all of it's been commoditized. There's been a massive race to the bottom where if you're not charging me $50 to do my bookkeeping, I'm going to go with someone else. And 50, I mean, you're literally talking about people used to pay $500 a month for bookkeeping. Now, your average you'll get lucky if you're making over $200 a month for bookkeeping. So we're talking less than half. You can charge less than half for bookkeeping. And bookkeeping adds no value. I don't care how many bookkeepers you ask, they will tell you that bookkeeping does not add any value to the client. What you do with that data adds value, absolutely. So what these accountants and what these business owners that use Clockwork for, they stop doing what they've been doing. They completely cut it out. And they can add a completely new skill set to their offering. So they're providing that next level, next generation offering, that service, that next level service offering for the clients and for the businesses that they do business with and their employees. Because another piece that AI is completely changing is the employment industry. When you look at people coming out and looking for jobs now, they have to know how to leverage AI in their job. I don't care what profession, even surgeons, even doctors, you have to leverage AI in your profession. So when I graduated college, several eons ago, I went out and I'm like, hey, my financial modeling skills are great. I can build as many models you want in Excel. And I got a very good salary, very good offering because that was my value. Now, when you graduate, you have to learn, hey, I've used these systems, I've used this software, I've used this automation, and this is how I've become better at it. These are the skills that I've learned because I've been able to automate. And now in the accounting industry, there's a massive labor shortage. There are fewer people majoring in accounting than ever before. And every year it decreases because no one wants to go and do transactional bookkeeping, tax work, audit work that drives people bananas. You get paid peanuts for it. You're working 80, 90 hours a week. No one cares for it. It's the most thankless job in the world, other than being the CEO of a tech company, but it's the most thankless job in the world being an accountant. And so people are graduating less. So when you go and try and find a firm, if you're one of the 10 people that graduate and you're going to look for a firm, you're not going to go and work at a firm that's old school. You're not going to go work at a firm that's been doing the stuff the same way that they've been doing it for 50 years. You're going to go and work for the firm that's leveraging AI-powered technology. And they're doing the advisory services. They're adding CFO-level insights. Those are the firms that are going to be able to hire and retain top-tier talent, whereas all the other firms are going to be bleeding like crazy because they can't keep up with your speed and they can't keep up with your talent. And that's really, Clockwork is at the forefront of that entire industry shift. And that's really where we're driving a ton of value.
Are you seeing a collapse in jobs? It sounded like you said the opposite, that there's a lot of demand, or actually I think you said there's less supply of accountants. But now that an accountant can be I think you said 2x faster in their job overall.
Yep.
Are you seeing? There's been this discussion. Suppose we have AI that makes us all X% faster. Do we have fewer jobs? Do we have more time at home? Or do we just have more productivity? And it seems like the answer is always more productivity. It's never, more time at home, and it's never, fewer jobs, because now you can hire more people and push harder because your neighbor company is going to do the same. I'm asking that because in some fields we're seeing an absolute collapse in the entire job market. So voiceovers, I think if we start seeing trucks being automated, the truck driver industry is going to collapse very rapidly, at least the long haul stuff. And I'm wondering what's happening with accountants.
Yeah, you're absolutely seeing a massive shift from the low-level transactional work. That's collapsing. And it's okay. Literally collapsing. The bookkeeping, the month-end reporting, that stuff's collapsing day by day. And you're seeing just a massive push up market in terms of services. Are you providing higher level services? Are you providing, if you look at the spectrum of accounting to finance, accounting will start because finance doesn't exist without accounting. So accounting will start, and at the very bottom basic, accounting is literally bookkeeping. And you look at the generation, the growth of accounting into finance. Up here at the top tier is CFO. And you're seeing just a massive push of everything here is squeezing and everything here is growing larger. So everything on the CFO front, everything on the high level finance front is significantly growing, but there's so much more that is being pushed, and people have to keep up or else they'll literally be out of a job. And that's really why you're seeing a massive introduction of a completely new industry of investment that's going around buying accounting firms and firing 75% of the staff, introducing AI technology, keeping the clients, charging them more money, and then rolling them up and then spinning them off. Like you're seeing an entire private equity industry open up on accountants because that is one industry that no one has touched for 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, the accounting industry has been the exact same. Now, it's very, very easy to automate. And if you're not automating, you will very, very quickly be bought out for, a decent multiple. I mean, some firms are getting 1.25, for a services firm. That's, not bad. And they get to live out the rest of their life on their lifestyle exit, and someone else will take their firm, literally introduce technology, rip it out, completely gut it, and then flip it for 2x within 6 months.
So 75% of some of these staffs are getting fired. That's a massive collapse.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because these firms.
Well, I was going to
Yeah,
say, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that innovation in accounting is notoriously, for one, bad, and for two, non-existent. Double entry bookkeeping goes back to the Spanish Main. It was essentially invented to deal with the treasure ships coming back, and the story I've heard, I don't know how apocryphal this is, was that the King of Spain's treasurer invented it, a debit-based system, to keep the king from being too profligate with his money. So rather than showing him how much money he had, he showed him how much money he didn't have in order to discourage him from going on spending jags. But
That's great.
but yeah, so we're talking about the last big advance being what, 500 years ago, 600 years ago, and yeah, being a business where creativity is associated with criminality. So yeah, I could easily see rapid shakeup, causing a lot of people to decide that they'd rather be sitting on a beach.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about the automation layer absolutely turning into a computer program. I mean, I think that's what all of our jobs really are. I'm wondering about then, what do you see over the next couple of years? You're saying that accounting is not going to go certain parts of accounting will not go away. But I'd love to just kind of pressure in on that. If we start to take, well, what's the next thing up that you've not yet automated? Like, let's, is there another level up where, yeah, that's not quite automatable, but with the right AI, there could be, because we're talking about the problems of alignment with AI. We're talking about the problems of sending your data to somewhere else and all these other things. But I'm thinking we have that same problem with humans, because, yeah, you can vet a human, but you don't know if they're secretly under the hood, a criminal or have other problems or just go, screw up bad or.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, what is that little twist that you think?
Well,
or I guess I'm trying to figure out, where do we boil the frog?
Right. I'll put in one shiv there, that one of the differences is scale. So a human being that may or may not be trustable with like $5 million, and then if they are, it's fine, might be fine, but that maybe none of those people would be trustable with $5 billion. And if the AI cranks your capacity up by 10x and then 100x and then 1000x, a system that used to generally produce trustable people at the scales at which they could work will start consistently producing untrustable people, because they're just operating at scales that don't make any sense anymore. I worked for companies that
in addition, the AI doesn't have the same motivations. It may not care about stealing $1 million.
Yes. But yeah, sorry.
So, yeah, no, that's great. I mean, when I look at, and I wanna hyper clarify, there are certain aspects of accounting that will disappear. Bookkeeping will disappear, and it should disappear. There's no value add in a human doing bookkeeping. It should absolutely disappear. That job that takes 5, 6, 7 hours a month to do bookkeeping, I don't care how big of a company it is, that should be reduced to like someone reviewing something over the span of a half hour and saying yes or no. So bookkeeping, month-end close, that kind of stuff, all that needs to be automated. And there are several software companies right now that are using really, really powerful technology to do so. And that will absolutely be removed. The accounting industry as a whole of adding value for your clients by limiting their taxable liability, by helping them navigate any economic uncertainties, any business uncertainties, any of those kinds of stuff. No one in a million years, I don't care how many people have come out, no one could have foreseen what happened because of COVID in the industry, in the economy. No one would have been able to know that. So I don't care how good the software is. The next time another COVID happens, whether it's through a pandemic or through a war or through a whatever it may be, and a tech boom, right? AI could be that next thing that AI can't even navigate what AI is doing to the industry or the
Yeah.
economy or the people. And so when you look at the grand scheme of things of what accounting looks like in the future, or it's going to be a massive push to get rid of all the old school things and the things that, and we always say Clockwork is not for your dad's accounting firm, right? It is for the forward thinking innovative firms. It is for the forward thinking innovative accountants. So when you look at CFOs, now let's swing things up, right? When I was the CFO of a company, it was a company, super successful startup. I was spending 30 hours a month in Excel.
Yeah.
30 hours a month I was building models and scenarios and doing dashboards and board reports and packages like that. 30 hours a month. I was getting paid $175,000 a year. And you're sitting me and you're telling a quarter of my time is putting together some very minimal added value stuff. And a lot of CFOs now, they think that their value is their modeling skills. People always talk about if you know FP&A, if you know financial planning and analysis, and you can build models, that's the easiest way to become a CFO. That's completely changed now. The future of what a CFO looks like is a COO. So now, if you're not a CFO, COO, you're not doing the right job. You're not doing it effectively enough, because if you're not ingrained in the operations of the company and moving it forward, and you're only you think that you can sit there and do the tax work, and a lot of companies even have chief accounting officers as well as a chief financial officer. Why do we have so many different segmentations across leadership of these people that are doing things that they learned 50, 60 years ago? And so we're seeing a complete shift in what an organization looks like, simply with the introduction of technology.
I was wondering about exactly that, about modeling, because modeling seems like a really interesting application of AI to look at the holistic company, to look at the overall macroeconomic situation, political situation. I think some of the interesting challenge there would be to how to talk to it, how to feed it that data. Like if you just use ChatGPT as a COO, Noah and I have talked a bit about when is management going to go away and in favor of AI. On the assumption that managers do a couple of things. They're part therapists and they're part managing to a spec and a certain time frame. And can we start to pick apart some of those features and turn that into an AI model, and then slap onto that someone like a COO, CFO if they're having to do modeling? Is there any reason why that modeling is not going to go into AI and be just another AI product?
Well,
Yeah, I mean that's what Clockwork does, right? Clockwork builds financial models. Like the second that someone creates an account, Clockwork will build the financial model for them. And the future of the future of Clockwork really is automating that entire thing. I don't, whenever someone comes and tells me that you can't automate financial modeling, like they did, like I said, back in 2018, when I told people I'm starting this company, Clockwork AI, and it's going to do what I've been doing for you. Keep in mind, I would charge people $10,000 to build them a financial model. And they're like, there's no way you're going to be able to build a software that's going to add $10,000 worth of value that I paid you to do this kinds of stuff. And I'm like, okay. And, literally through the evolution, I started showing people some of the technology that we were building, and they're like, "Oh, wow, okay, well, this is actually interesting. You guys are kind of getting to it." And financial modeling has been something that people have been trying to solve for a very, very long time because of how important it is and how much time it takes. And all these companies, these legacy companies, they've failed at it, but they've they've ingrained themselves in this industry, like Adaptive Insights, Anaplan, Planful, all these large planning software companies. You need to have a dedicated team to manage that software, to to build financial models, to build scenarios, to build plans, ERP planning, all that kind of stuff. Those insights have forever been non-existent, not unavailable, completely inaccessible to any company that's making less than $50 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
And Clockwork that's the fit that we're solving. That's the pain, that's the problem, that's the market that we live in, where we're taking an entire department that traditionally had to be a department managing this very robust, difficult to use, cumbersome software. And we've automated that, simplified it, used AI, and now you don't have to have a finance department when you don't need to. You don't have to hire a CFO when you don't need to. You don't have to have a director of FP&A when you don't need to. So not only are you getting a lot better and a lot faster, you're not spending $150,000 a year on that person who's going to sit there and live in Excel. And then that person is the only person who controls the model. Because if you look at a financial model, I've built thousands of financial models. I can literally take my financial model, give it to someone else who builds financial models, and they're going to say, "This is crap. I can do it this way and this way and this way." Because everyone builds their models just like developers. Everyone codes in a specific way. Everyone builds in a specific way their financial models. So when you take that element out of it, that human element, and you standardize that process, just the standardization of financial modeling for these companies that make less than $50 million a year, you are improving 90% of the market overnight just with the use of technology. If every company can use Clockwork, and Clockwork, keep in mind, we're talking a couple $100 a month and free. There's a free version of Clockwork for companies that overnight you can use the software within 3 minutes, and you're seeing stuff that you never even could think of. And that's what's changing in this industry, and that's how AI is just completely decimating part of the accounting industry, but then booming other parts of it.
Well,
That's what I was going to ask too.
to,
Go ahead.
to
Noah.
bang my drum a little bit, so I have a patent pending on a different kind of marketplace that effectively works by allowing the entire market to collaboratively model how price will evolve in a way that will then be available to everybody and advantages the people that made useful contributions. That's only applicable in markets that are actually competitive. And a lot of companies are basically looking for niches where they're not going to have competitors. And so that collaborative environment won't help them. But that kind of change in the financial system is something that I see as a necessary outgrowth of the buildup of the kinds of capacities you're talking about creating, because at the end of the day, in order for trade to happen, there needs to be a meeting of the minds. And so there's going to have to be a cooperative element in our systems that's going to need to take into account the actual user desires and some kind of bridging thing to allow small businesses to actually exist and not just be taken over by these huge firms that can afford to do so many different things.
Absolutely.
What's the that 75% of people that are, I guess, being left behind? But there's a lot of new things being created on the other side. Are they being are they evolving, or are we going to end up with a whole class of people who are just pre 2024 and everybody, or pre 2020, or whenever you want to cut the line of when AI started to eat all the jobs? Is there new stuff for them?
Yeah, there's a significant divide. You'll have a large segment of that 75% of the people that have been, because when you look at a firm, say they have 50 employees, 75% of those people are doing bookkeeping, and then 25% of those people are doing the higher value add.
Mm-hmm.
You take that 75%, and you're talking maybe a quarter of them actually care to evolve their skill set. The others have been doing it for 30, 40 years. They don't really care. They don't want to learn technology. You're lucky that they even learned what Microsoft Excel was when Microsoft Excel came out. And those are the kinds of people that want to stick with the status quo, and they want to make their comfortable $50,000 a year, leave me alone, pay my benefits, let me have health insurance, and let me live out the rest of my days standard status quo. So a large part of that subset are simply going to just fade away. I mean, they're not evolving.
They're going to be in
They
trouble.
don't care to evolve. Yeah, and they're incapable of evolving. So you're going to have a massive divide of the forward-thinking next generation accounting professionals, and then the traditional old school accounting professionals that will literally not have a job. But with that divide, there are enough companies that are old school that are out there, right? When you talk about how many companies exist in this industry, exist in the world, let alone, you're talking north of 100 million companies that exist, right? So there will always be a small subset of companies that don't care to implement technology. They don't care to use AI. And if you bring up AI, they're going to think you're taking all their data and selling it to China or Russia, right? So those companies will always exist, and they will always need those old school 75% of the firms type people. So there will always be that small sliver of never going to change, never going to adapt, but they're always going to run out. And then every year, that number is just going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Okay, so they have a soft landing. It sounds like for them, sort of like the COBOL programmers that slowly faded away until they retired, and many of them passed away. And
and some of them made vastly more money than any of us ever have, because
the demand went up.
Suddenly, yes, the people that refused to change had to pay a lot more to continue to refuse to change.
Yeah,
Yep.
until now, I wonder how much that's done by AI too.
Yeah, that would be interesting to find out whether or not Copilot has a COBOL.
And a Fortran and
Fortran
the
is
other old
Fortran's still in
still in
general
use.
use for real people. Yes.
Yeah. But that's interesting that that those accountants will find probably a softer landing while the next generation grows up and knows how to work with AI. One of the topics I've been talking to a number of CTOs about is this problem of how do you get your entire staff using AI? Because the real challenge is that if AI will make average programmers say 10 to 20% faster, and 50% of your people are using it, but the competitive company over there, everybody's using it. They're now effectively paying for a lot more productivity out of their engineers than you are. But it's interesting. What I have found is what is kind of the opposite of what I've expected. A lot of the older school programmers have been the ones adapting to AI faster, which is more counterintuitive to me. I've been having a trouble adapting to it with some of my programs, just because I want to say it's a lack of creativity in some sense, that I know what's there and I know I've seen it be extremely powerful, and yet I still don't use it on a day-to-day, and I don't know why. Even though I espouse
I think there might be some training issues as the system gets out. So I'd imagine, Fady, when you're talking about this old school, it's not just the people who are fresh out of college that are looking for the new technology, and it's not just the gray hairs who are old school. There's going to be some people on both sides of those things. A lot of modern programming has really shifted over towards boot camp style training, even at high level colleges. MIT abandoned their old scheme class in favor of a Python class about a decade ago now, I think. And so there's a lot more of a focus on this is how you're supposed to code for the job that you're going to have. And then you go to that job and they're like, yeah, that was cute, but then also you have to use these three systems and this is how you use those. And you kind of get slotted in, and the younger generation is a little bit more old school. Whereas when the world was new, you know, 2 decades ago, there was a lot more
Yeah.
problem solving. Hey, let's grab a new language. Hey, let's grab a new operating system. Hey, let's grab a new database, see how it works, decide things on the fly. And so people were a lot more about I have an objective and I can describe what that looks like, and then I have a set of resources and I need to try to figure them out and figure out how you take these Legos and build that picture, because I don't have an instruction manual.
Yeah, I think you hit on something extremely important there, and the education of it, right? To be an accountant, you actually have to get a certification, right? Certified public accountant. To be a CPA. To be a developer, you just learn developing and then call yourself a developer because you get a job as a developer. There are certifications that you can get as an engineer, but when you look at the education of accountants to become a CPA, that stuff is 10 years behind, let alone anywhere near implementing any sort of formal training or formal certification or formal understanding of what AI looks like, let alone technology. When you look at schooling for, you have to have a master's in accounting. When you go in to get a master's in accounting, they're teaching you about stuff like Enron. Like that's what they're still literally learning and teaching in schools. They're not teaching anything else. So when you have that boot camp style training, you're absolutely right that for accountants, that stuff doesn't exist. So there's no like packaged training. That's really been one of the reasons that we've been so successful so early on. Is not only are we saying, hey, this is the AI, this is great. This is the AI and this is how you need to use it. This is how you're going to transform your firm. We are going to give you the keys to the kingdom and show you how to open the door. And a lot of companies, a lot of industries, a lot of professions don't do that. They're just saying, oh, use AI. Why are you not using AI? No one knows what to do with AI. It's like a dog chasing a car. The dog knows it wants to get to the car, but when it gets to that car, what is it going to do with the car? Right. And that's really the situation that we're in right now.
Hey, you said something that made me need to go do a quick Google search. So we've seen that ChatGPT, or GPT-4 specifically, passed the Uniform Bar exam,
Yep.
the MCAT, and apparently also the CPA exam.
Yes, I remember reading about that.
Yeah, with an 85% score. That's pretty good. Yeah. Well, we're about out of time. Fady, could you tell us a little bit about where people can find your company? And you said you also have a podcast?
Yeah, I do. So my podcast is called The Real Slim Fady Show.
Awesome.
And an homage to the greatest of all time. Yeah. And Clockwork, check out clockwork.ai or at clockworkai.com. As long as you use QuickBooks Online or Xero, you can literally create an account in 3 minutes. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. I have a pretty active presence on LinkedIn and Instagram as well.
Fantastic. I'm actually going to have to go check it out because trying to spin up a startup and I know nothing about finance, accounting, or anything in that area. So thank you. Thank you, Fady. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was a pleasure.